Today, we're digging into one of modern cinema's most talked about, most controversial projects, Mel Gibson's sequel to The Passion of the Christ. But this is about more than just a movie. We're exploring a story that some believe isn't just being filmed, but prophesied.
So let's just get right into it. The sources we've looked at present two completely different ways to understand what's happening here. On one hand, you have the story of a filmmaker battling to tell a sacred story. But on the other, you have the vision of a divinely timed trigger for a global spiritual awakening.
Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the sheer impact of the original film. Then, we'll get into the brutal, real-life battle to get it made. After that, we'll dive into this radical cosmic interpretation of what the sequel really is. We'll compare the two visions for Resurrection and wrap it all up with the huge question surrounding its 2027 release date.
To really get what's at stake with the sequel, you have to rewind the clock. You have to understand that The Passion of the Christ wasn't just another movie. It was a full-blown cultural earthquake.
I mean, think about this for a second. It was shot entirely in Aramaic and Latin. Dead languages. No big-name movie stars. Every single major studio in Hollywood rejected it, flat out. They thought it would be a total financial disaster. And what happened? It became the highest-grossing non-English language film in history. Audiences treated it like a pilgrimage.
But what's really wild is that the story behind the camera was, in a lot of ways, just as intense, just as full of suffering as the one we saw on screen.
You know, for Mel Gibson, this project came from a place of deep personal crisis. He talked about being at rock bottom, completely hollowed out. Making this film wasn't some career move for him. He saw it as a desperate act of penance. It was his way of telling the story that he felt had personally saved his life.
And he literally put his money where his mouth was. When every studio door slammed shut, Gibson invested $45 million of his own money. No safety net, no backup plan. If this movie had failed, he would have been financially and professionally ruined overnight.
And once they started filming, things just got stranger. In one of the most unbelievable on-set stories I've ever heard, the lead actor, Jim Caviezel, was struck by lightning. Not once, but twice. The second time, the bolt hit him and an assistant director at the exact same moment. And the lightning was just the start. The physical toll this role took was staggering. And this wasn't just Hollywood make-believe. A whip accidentally sliced a 14-inch gash in his back for real. The 150-pound cross dislocated his shoulder. He got hypothermia and double pneumonia from filming in the freezing Italian winds. The suffering was authentic.
But see, Caviezel knew exactly what he was signing up for. Gibson actually warned him, this role could destroy your career in Hollywood. But Caviezel's response says everything. He saw the role itself as his cross to bear, a personal sacrifice he was truly willing to make.
And it wasn't just suffering and strange accidents. There were also these inexplicable events. The crew talked about the weather suddenly changing to match the emotion of a scene. Mysterious visitors dressed in white would apparently appear, give some direction, and then just vanish. And maybe most striking of all, several non-believing actors had spontaneous spiritual conversions right there on set, including the man who played Judas.
So you have all these unexplainable things happening on set. And that leads us directly to our next point. Because one of our sources, a group known as the UCUCGA, offers a lens that reframes this entire project. They see it not as a movie, but as a preordained cosmic event.
Now, the UUCGA vision is built on this core axiom, the God within. The idea here is that Christ isn't just some external, historical figure that you worship. No, Christ is a divine frequency, a consciousness that already exists inside every single human being's DNA. So from this perspective, the true resurrection isn't something that happened 2,000 years ago. It's the inner awakening of that potential right now. So, according to this framework, Mel Gibson isn't just making another movie. He is deliberately using texts from the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, which they see as the only uncorrupted source code, to create what they call an external trigger. The film itself is designed to be a divine portal, something to spark a mass awakening. So what's the endgame here? It's huge. The UOCGA manifest says it plainly. Christ can rise in everyone. The film's true purpose, in this view, is to activate that Christ within on a planetary scale. It's not about remembering history, it's about initiating the future. And this brings us right to the sequel, Resurrection, where these two narratives, the earthly cinematic vision and the prophetic cosmic vision, finally come together in one single project.
And man, these visions could not be more different. On one side, you have Mel Gibson describing the sequel as a supernatural thriller, this wild acid trip-like journey into other realms. And on the other, you have the US CGA prophecy of a film that will literally trigger the activation of our Christ DNA, unlocking the divine potential that they believe is coded into all of us.
Gibson's focus is on what's called the harrowing of hell. It's those 3 mysterious days between the cross and the empty tomb, the part of the story cinema never ever shows. And he doesn't see it as some gentle rescue mission. No, he describes it as a violent invasion, where Christ's spirit descends to shatter the gates of the underworld itself and conquer death.
And all of this, every single piece we've talked about, leads to the final and, honestly, the most provocative point of all, the incredibly specific and deeply symbolic timing of this film's release. Okay, so the project is reportedly so big, it's being released in 2 parts. Part 1 is slated to premiere on Good Friday 2027. Part 2 is set to arrive exactly 40 days later on Ascension Day. That's not an accident. That 40-day gap perfectly mirrors the 40 days that Christ is said to have remained on Earth after the resurrection.
So how do you read this 40-day window? Is it just a brilliant marketing move, perfectly aligning the movie with the church calendar to create maximum buzz? Or is it what the UUCGA source claims it is? A divinely aligned galactic portal, a 40-day transmutation period that's been specifically designed to trigger their prophesied global event.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question. Is Mel Gibson simply a filmmaker finishing a story he started 2 decades ago? Or is he, whether he knows it or not, about to unlock something far, far bigger? When the film finally arrives, what are you going to be witnessing? A story about the past or an activation of your future?